my parents are not like super proud Argentinians. This is the frustrating thing. I wanted them to be super proud. I was like,
Yeah.
where's the Argentinian pride? Especially because here's the funny thing. The stereotype of Argentinians is to be super proud, you know? We have Messi, we have the Pope, we have tango, we have asados. Like it's the
Right.
same things over and over again. And the funny thing is when I arrived in Argentina, it was like getting so slapped in the face. I mean, absolutely nobody treated me like an Argentinian because I wasn't. I just arrived and I had no
Yeah.
cultural references.
Right.
I had my accent. I try to speak with the Argentinian accent, which is distinctive, but I get there, I'm trying so hard. I'm like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and everybody's like, they would call me a shanky. Shanky is it's a Spanish word, at least used in Argentina for with the pronunciation for Yankee. Really, a Yankee
Right.
being an American. It's like a nickname.
Right.
That was for me the beginning of being like, whoa, okay, I don't know if I will ever find a place that I fully belong.
Right.
I'll have pieces of myself that were shaped by these different places, but the idea that I'll be able to just like, oh, that's home, bingo,
Yeah.
I'll stay right there. That might not ever happen.
I remember this thing my uncle once told me. I have an uncle he's Dutch, and he and his wife, my aunt, moved to Belgium, and they spent, I think, 30 or so years there now. They've
So
raised both of their children in Belgium and
okay, so Netherlands to Belgium,
to Belgium.
so it's just a
They're
neighboring
both
country.
Dutch, neighboring country, but there's culturally they're quite different. Where there's definitely a substantial difference. There's a reason why Belgium is like not like doesn't want to be Dutch, and
Of
they've
course, I'm
made a
not
great
suggesting
no,
otherwise.
but I mean they've made a great effort to integrate well into Belgian culture and to be part of it as much as they can and to learn French and all of this stuff. And he was noting that even after all of that time spent in Belgium, they're still referred to as the Dutch neighbors, right? By the people in their community. And there's this shocking realization that you can take from this is no matter your commitment to really integrate into a different culture that you're not originally from, having not fully grown up there, you're never going to be Belgian. I'm never going to be French. No matter if I stay here for 20 or 30 or 40 years and I learn the language perfectly and all of that stuff, culturally there will be something different. And I'm not going to a place and setting myself up there for life with the intention to at some point be accepted completely as part of that country, because I don't
Right.
think that's going to happen. And that's kind of what hearing this from my uncle, what it reminded me of is you can learn as much as you want about a culture, but if you're really longing for a sense of belonging somewhere, it's not going to happen in the same way
Right.
where a native from that area is going to refer to you as being native. It's like you
Yeah.
can't do that. It's like for us, it's never going to happen. You could be American if you accepted it, but you don't, and you're never going to be Argentinian, and you're never going to be French.
Or really never fully any of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly parts of me that I think, especially, I mean, a lot of Europeans, this is the funny thing too. You're treated as a different thing in different places. So Europeans see me and they're like, American, by how I speak. I
Yeah.
think also, and I'm proud of this actually, the mentality of like, go for it, that like entrepreneurial thing.
Right.
I love that. And I recognize now living here, oh, that's actually distinctly from the United States.
Yeah.
It exists in much smaller quantities elsewhere, but there's just it's like a cultural thing over there,
Yeah.
But it doesn't, I think the frustrating thing is that there's this gap always between what you're feeling and how people are treating you. And but I think at a certain point, at least for me, and it seems like for you too, you give up, right? You stop trying. Who are you trying to convince anybody of, or anything of, I
Yeah.
should say, right? Like, who are you? Why does it matter if you fit perfectly in this box or that box? I think there's a safety or a comfort that comes from that, but at the end of the day, I am what I am, and it's actually kind of cool, this blend of different things. I've come to see it as a strength in many ways. So yeah, the only challenge that I find comes with that is this continued desire to belong somewhere, and I kind of realized that you have to create that, you know, and it might end up being, for me, it's actually ended up being surrounding myself with other people with the same issue.
Right.
You
That's
know,
where you find belonging or connection. It's like, you guys struggle with it as well.
oh, you're a blend of like four different things too. Awesome, you
Nice. We're
get the
gonna get
struggles.
along.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think this is difficult because I think one thing that happens coming from multiple cultures is it does turn you into someone who's got a more individualistic perspective on life, because you don't have one group that you can really associate yourself with correctly. So maybe some of the things I'm going to say are just going to be individualistic, and it's not the only way to think about it. But my take on this is that by not having one culture that you fully belong to, you're confronted at a much earlier point in life by the fact that you have to construct your identity yourself. You have to pick out and decide for yourself what you want to do, where you want to be, who you want to spend your time with, and what you want to spend your time doing in a way that you might not be confronted by as strongly if you had a culture that you fully belong to. It's like I've been forced to really think about the content of my life because there wasn't much of a pre-written thing to go off of. And I see that as a great benefit, because I think everybody at some point is going to have to confront those things and have to decide for themselves how they want to lead their lives and where they want to do that and who they want to do it with. But it can be delayed if you have this comfort of having specific answers or certain trajectory or a comfortable place where you already feel at home. But that I do admit that is perhaps an individualistic perspective. Maybe it's much better to have a place where you already feel at home and have a path that's laid out more cleanly, or is that where you can more easily visualize where you could be for your life, because you see a lot of people that are similar in where they came from and how they grew up. But I don't know. Obviously, I have an individualistic view on this because that's just how I've grown up. But I think it's good actually to have to confront the construction of your own identity yourself, and that's come from the fact that I couldn't take it from just one country.
I hadn't thought about that, but you know, it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, it's certainly a lot simpler to have like your whole identity or sense of attachment to a place be one single place versus multiple different things, because it can create confusion. I mean, it created confusion for me growing up, and I overcompensated. I mean, I've always admired, I guess, in a sense, people that have felt pride or like a strong I don't know, connection or debt almost to their country. It's a very foreign concept to me, because I just have not felt that singular thing for any single place. I've done it enough times now where you see pros and cons to basically anywhere you go.
Yeah.
So the idea of just being like, yeah, that's my team is like, it's a little too, it doesn't make sense to me, but I certainly tried to do this. And then I also, in a sense, I admire that exists, right? The World Cup is happening right now, and people are cheering for the teams that represent their countries. And it's kind of cool to see the level of emotion.
Yeah.
This is channeled, I guess, in a positive sense versus like a much more negative sense, which is like, oh, my country's going to invade your country or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, the Greeks had 4 different words for love, and one of them is a love for something bigger, like a nation or something like that. And I don't know. I just haven't been able to boil it down to one single thing. And right now I can say it nonchalantly, but for a long time I was like, what's wrong with me? You know, like why can't I find this sense of connection? And then on top of it, people that on the flip side have maybe like only lived in one place, or like have maybe never even left their country, which is a privilege in and of itself, I think. What we're saying probably sounds nonsensical, right? Like how can you not have that sense of connection?